disciple. Jesus in today's gospel offers us some of his most memorable images, warnings about the blind leading the blind, logs and specks in the eye, trees with good and bad fruit. And they come at the end of Jesus' famous Sermon on the Plain, which we've been reading these last 3 Sundays at Mass. And these striking images touch on what I think is a very modern concern: authenticity. What makes for an authentic disciple? Our society widely celebrates whatever it is to be authentic. Charles Taylor, the Canadian philosopher, has observed a very distinctive notion of authenticity in our society. And the basic idea is that each person has his or her own way of living out their humanity. Authenticity comes from discovering what is one's own path. Taylor says there's a certain way of being human that is my way. I'm called to live my life in this way and in imitation of no one else's. One popular psychologist put it, the greatest act of courage is to be and to own all of who you are. And I remember well a conversation with a good friend of mine the summer before I became a Dominican. This friend is a convinced atheist, and I was sharing with him my intentions to join the order and was expecting and half hoping to be told, "You want to consecrate your life to God? You are utterly mad." And then a lively conversation might follow. But instead, I received lots of very well-meaning and well-intended words of encouragement and affirmation. If that's what you want to do, that's great. And there was clearly kindness in this, a goodwill that belongs to friendship. But something was missing too. Our culture, and perhaps my generation in particular, is deeply reticent about ever challenging someone's life choices or decisions. And it's because this notion of authenticity, I think, is so deeply embedded in our society. The only thing that matters is that you live your life in conformity with how you feel, and the authentic person discovers the true self within. Brené Brown, a very popular podcaster and author, captures this when she said, "Authenticity is about the choice to show up and be real, the choice to let our true selves be seen." But is that all there is to authenticity? How should our inner convictions relate to how we live and behave? And this question is at the heart of today's gospel, I think, with the image of trees and their fruit. No good tree bears bad fruit, nor again does a bad tree bear good fruit, Jesus says, for each tree is known by its own fruit. Jesus is speaking about how our interior dispositions relate to our words and actions. What comes out of a person reveals what is inside. And Sirach speaks about this too in our first reading. It's a classic biblical conviction. The fruit discloses the cultivation of a tree, so the expression of a thought discloses the cultivation of a person's mind. The basic point is that a good disciple shows an integrity of life, a harmony between what is within and what is without. The good person, out of the good treasure of his heart, produces good. But is this integrity the same thing as Taylor's notion of authenticity? Is that all there is to being a good disciple? If we look a little closer at Jesus' image of this tree and fruit, there are actually two things going on. In the first place, he speaks about the quality of the fruit. A good tree produces good fruit, a bad tree, bad fruit. But importantly, Jesus adds to this a second crucial observation. The tree and the fruit correspond also in kind. Figs grow on fig trees, not on thorn bushes. Grapes grow on vines, not on bramble bushes. And so to be a good disciple, authenticity has everything to do with what kind of thing you are. And behind this sits another fundamental biblical conviction. We are created in the image and the likeness of God. Being a good disciple, therefore, is not so much about searching for a true self within, but searching for God. Yes, some introspection is important, but we look in to look up, to search for the God who is closer to us than we are to ourselves, as St. Augustine so beautifully put it. For the Christian, the question of authenticity can never be separated from creation and from gift. What kind of person then is the good disciple? The whole movement of this Sermon on the Plain that Jesus gives couldn't be clearer. Over the past 2 Sundays, we heard first the proclamation of the Beatitudes, and then last week, that call to utterly gratuitous love. And then today, in this part of the sermon, Jesus says, everyone, when he is fully trained, will be like his teacher. It's a moral vision that takes concrete form in the life of Christ. The good disciple, shaped by the Beatitudes, given totally in love, looks like Christ. If Charles Taylor is right, that our culture's mark of authenticity is a life lived in one's own way and not in imitation of anyone else's, then Christian authenticity couldn't be more countercultural. Becoming a good disciple is about receiving and inhabiting the life offered us in Christ. It's no longer I who live, but Christ who lives in me, St. Paul proclaimed to the Galatians. We do all have a unique path that is our own. When Pope Benedict was asked how many roads are there to God, he responded, as many as there are people. But that road for every one of us is shaped by Christ. I am the way, the truth, and the life, said the Lord. No one comes to the Father except through me. Christian authenticity begins with Christ. He dwells in us, and we dwell in him. Today, Jesus invites us to live his life.